Should we start now? Okay. I think we can begin with our session today. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekend meeting with Sanal Edamaruku. I'm Shubhi Sinha, heading the youth wing of Rationalist International. Since you all know that we have linked our Zoom, YouTube, and Clubhouse together, so I welcome you all. And now you can ask questions through any of these platforms. We have Deepthi and her colleagues in Clubhouse who will help us with the question answer process there. So now moving on to the topic, the topic for today is aliens and angels. Many of the youngsters have started believing in angels like nowadays after watching fictional movies like Beauty and the Beast or Harry Potter or movies with angels and demons. And for all of those reasons, they've also started experiencing such incidents. But what is the real meaning behind it, and what is the more scientific explanation for it? I think Sanal sir would be the best to answer these questions. So I would welcome Mr. Sanal Edamaruku and request him to start with his presentation.
Thank you, Shubhi, and thank you everybody who is handling the Clubhouse event also. And simultaneously, this is going on YouTube as well for those people who cannot follow Clubhouse and Zoom, for example, in the Gulf countries. Primarily, there is a lot of similarity between the idea of angels and the imaginations that we have about aliens around us. I'll tell you start with a story. Sometime back when I was in London, on a Sunday morning, I was on a walk. I found with surprise, there was a small signboard at the roadside, which was, of course, printed in bold letters with the black and white and kept there. It says that free coffee and breakfast, come to the church. And then I walked further and I found several such small signboards, foldable signboards in different parts of the city, all Sunday mornings. Nobody normally visits the Sunday morning services in the church these days. 1 second. But there are ways to attract people to the church. And with curiosity, with one of my friends, could you close your microphone, Deepthi? Yeah. Out of curiosity, I have walked towards the direction these signboards were leading me, along with a friend, who was accompanying me for the morning walk. And we reached an old, big church. It was well organized. There was a person very happily welcoming everybody who would be coming. I found that, some people who were on the morning walk are there. And of course, there are some people who would otherwise, for example, some homeless people were there and they were, going there for a breakfast. Well, there is breakfast kept on one side of the parish hall. You would get it only after the service. You have to be in the church services and you have to wait there. Then you would get a breakfast. That's one way of attracting people to the church. But I was not interested in the breakfast. I was interested in the modus operandi that was working there and how they have been trying to attract people. Then I found there were some 15 or 14 people sitting there, not watching at the altar, but watching at the breakfast and a little bit chatting, friendly atmosphere, because nobody was seriously very devout or pious or anything. People were just there for a gathering and a free breakfast. And it's an interesting event. It's not very cold. There is not wind because it's a huge closed parish hall. Well, then before the services began, me and my colleague, we watched on the site. There are a lot of, on every single table, there is a small origami. The famous Japanese art of making little creatures and all with paper. And these all were of angels. Everywhere there is an angel. You can take away this angel to your room, to your home, to a place where you're residing, and keep this angel. They don't put a cross there. They don't put a small statuette of Jesus Christ. They don't put anything that's connected with the mainstream Christian belief, but of course, there were a lot of angels available. Well, outside, there was a small selling table. I went there. They were selling small statues, but majority of them were of angels, not of any crucifix or anything. Of course, there were some, but not much people were buying. But those who were interested were buying the small little statues of angels. Why there is a shift from Jesus Christ to angels in the Anglican churches in Britain? That was something very curious. And of course, I knew the fundamentals behind the whole thing. Mainly because there has been an effort to find new heroes of people in quotation. What would be interesting for people in connection with the spiritual thought in broader sense? Everywhere you see, from 1950s, perhaps you can see Santa Claus becoming a major character on Christmas. It's not Jesus Christ, but Santa Claus. The red cap and the great attire and the white beard. And it's a grand old man, with a friendly face. And many children would like to see such a figure. And of course, anybody who is, having a childhood in Europe know what is Santa Claus for them. Santa Claus is like what is Maveli for the Keralites in India, an imaginary character who would be visiting them every year with a lot of gifts, a huge packet of gifts. And they come there and they would give the gift to you. And parents would normally engage a person. There are a lot of Santa Claus companies all around Europe, also in Latin America and some in Mumbai and in Delhi also. You have Santa Claus companies working on the Christmas time. People offer themselves as Santa Claus, and there'll be real Santa Claus coming to your children or to you when we are children. They would come at the knock and say that I'm Santa Claus here. I came to see the little wonderful children here. And he would come with a lot of gifts. Of course, the parents have bought the gifts and gave to the Santa Claus, which he would be giving to the children with a lot of advices, mainly with the parents want the children to know. For example, you should really do your homework regularly every day morning or in the evening itself before sleeping. Then you have to be really studious in your studies, but don't watch television too much. All the parents, what they wanted to tell you would be told by Santa Claus. But some clever children would immediately understand, well, these are the things that my papa or mama would be telling me. But now the Santa Claus is telling. But Santa Claus is a friendly, guy who would talk to you and give you a lot of wonderful gifts and chocolates and a lot of gifts. So anybody who thinks about Christmas with this background has a Santa Claus in the imagination. Santa Claus is not real, you know. You also know that, later these people would be collecting their fee from your parents for their role as the Santa Claus. It's a role model thing that eventually when you grow, by 13 years or 12 years, you know that Santa Claus is paid by your parents. And of course, still, you know, you would be waiting for the Santa Claus. Still, you would want Santa Claus to come and give you the gifts and you would enjoy it. That's a shift from a mythological character, or it was not a spiritual character. It's a kind of a myth and fun connected together. And then you see the shift from the myth to a little humor, and you would enjoy it. And later you would be, understanding who exactly was the Santa Claus, and you would be following it. Similarly, can you imagine that angels are available to visit you now? They would talk to you. And you can get advices from angels. These services are available in connection with many spiritual institutions all around the world now. It's not yet much in the Oriental part of the world, not where Hinduism or Buddhism or Islam is, in predominance, but in the mainstream Christian land, angels are very active in your spiritual life. The idea comes as follows. You know that, the whole Abrahamic religions have angels in their belief structure. These angels are very active people. They fly. They fly with wings, and they look very nice, because you have seen paintings of angels, of Michelangelo's paintings, and all these paintings. You see beautiful angels flying or accompanying all these spiritual figures, and they would be looking very friendly, and they are protecting you, and you have heard a lot of stories about them. So you have an idea what an angel is. It would be angels that would take you to the heavens after your death. It will be angels that are protecting you. These are the kind of thoughts or beliefs that are very popular amongst those who are faithful. But these angels have a different story in these religions also. Some angels are in predominance. There's a hierarchical structure in the belief in connection with the angels. One major belief is as follows. There are some angels who are very, very devoted to the God, either Allah or Jehovah or whatever God, the angel is connected to. Angels are eternally young people. They would never get old. Like the God himself, probably. Though some of the paintings show a grand old man with a huge beard and trying to create Adam, who is a young man. But also in some other parts, it's written that nobody has ever seen a God. It's not visible. No, you can see it. But of course, painters would make it. That is possible only when it's allowed in your religion. For example, if you are Muslim, you cannot draw the picture of or paint a god. You can be punished. And there are stories of angels in Islam as well as in Christianity, as well as in Judaic religion. But these angels have different levels. Some are very, very important people. Some even are connected with the birth of the messenger of God for Muslims, Isa, and or the son of God to Christians, Jesus Christ. So it's Gabriel for Christians and Jibril for Muslims, who came and told Maryam or Mary that there be now going to be a child from the Holy Ghost. So this story from the Bible, there is an angel, Gabriel, coming in and connecting the Holy Spirit and the human being on the earth. These angels appear occasionally. Muhammad, as per Quran, has seen many of these angels, and he would communicate with these angels, and they talk to him. These are the beliefs that was coming from the Semitic religions. But as a collective myth, this has gone into new directions and taken new orientations, and new ideas have come along with that. And in every society you can see similar beliefs, which apparently people connected with birds. For example, the humans that can fly. That's one major belief in connection with human-shaped persons that can fly. But also you can see little angels. These are little kids who have died and they become angels. So you can see in all the ancient paintings or medieval times paintings, you can see little kids as angels or young women as angels. But unfortunately, there are no men who are angels. But in Greek mythology, you can see flying people, flying gods who are men also. Many gods can fly. And this imagination that people who can fly, people who have proximity to the gods, have been part of the thought in Egyptian mythology, in Assyrian mythology, in the Judaic mythology, and even, when it comes to the Christian as well as Quranic beliefs, also the same kind of beliefs are continuing. but there are fallen angels. The forces that are against the gods that are fighting as per the stories, for example, the Satan or Iblis for Muslims, those all were angels, but they turned against the God, or the God has been taking them off from his privileged position, and they turned against the God, and they became eventually against him and tried to win the people against the God. Look at the biblical story in the beginning of humankind. The story says as follows, that God has created a little paradise and asked people to live there, and the Garden of Eden was there, and everything was good for everybody, everything was fine for everybody. And then at one time, they were told that there is a tree in the center of the garden, and which has fruits. And these are forbidden fruits. You cannot eat that. The moment you eat it, you will you will die. That day you will die. And then comes a serpent. The serpent was known, but Satan himself. And who is Satan? Satan is a fallen angel. Lucifer is supposed to be the fallen angel who has an empire of all these bad elements. They were all fallen angels. And then he tells the people, that's how the story, the eternal pressure on you, that's coming from the opposite side of the gods. Those were also angels, but fallen angels. They can also fly, they can also move, they can influence you, they can win you against the gods, and they can influence you against the wishes of the god. God has said as per the story that you cannot eat this fruit, and if you eat, you will be you will die immediately. But what happens is they would be asked to try this fruit. Nothing would happen. There is a temptation given. And the temptation was very powerful. And Eve tries to bite the forbidden fruit and give it to her husband, Adam. And they didn't die. As per the story, as per the threatening given by the god, they should die the same day, but they didn't die. Of course, the fallen angel, that is the Satan or the Lucifer or whatever it is, he has been correct because they didn't die, but God is so angry because now they would know what is good and right. And they felt the idea, what is shame, they started feeling. They covered their nudity and they were very shy. And at the end of the day, God punishes them, eternal pain for the lady. When she delivers a child, and they are thrown out of the what you call the Garden of Eden. But this fallen angel coming in the shape of a snake, or the other angel that comes with wings, and that would be taking you when you die to the heavens or protect you, has declined as a popular myth over the years. This had no influence in the mainstream belief for a long time, because Christianity has gone through several phases. The traditional Christianity, that was the Roman Catholic Church at one side and the Eastern tradition on the other side, both faced a lot of challenges. In the centers where the Eastern churches were in power, there came Islam, and they were practically driven off from there when their authorities have gone. And of course, it has some influence you can see in the Greek Orthodox Church as well as the Russian Orthodox Church, and the Roman Catholic Church splits into two vertically after the Reformation, and the Protestant movement emerges, completely smashing the absolute authority of the Roman Catholic Church. The issues became different than the eternal hell and the promising heaven. Issues became the real power and the authority on this earth. The evangelization pattern that the mighty Roman Empire wanted to establish has declined to great fights for power on earth. The angels have vanished. but swords came. And the great wars of jihad at one side, on the other side, you had crusade. For the authority on this earth, for the authority for the empires, for the authority of control and everything that is here on this earth, there have been great fights. And of course, theology was again still used to interpret your religion the way you want it to be presented to your faithful and to stop you from going to the other side of the faith. Angels moved from your imagination to the great wall paintings. Nobody spoke about aliens those times. But aliens come later. Once you start knowing about the universe and the size of the universe, and that it is not as it was promised in the old text, that there is a huge universe beyond your knowledge. Beyond the solar system, you have far away great stars, and many stars may have its own systems of, satellites revolving around it, and the huge Milky Way, and several galaxies like that, and the size of the universe that we knew, really in our mind or in our understanding also, it has grown bigger and bigger and bigger. And people have traveled in aeroplanes. Nobody has seen an angel flying, as per you see in the pictures, standing on a big bunch of clouds and waving you or something like that. Nobody was there. The angels have really vanished from your real belief. You can see, for example, in the 15th century or 17th century, there are stories and stories of people claiming that angels came to them, talked to them, gave them advices. They felt it. They felt it real. Their hallucinations were connected to angels. And many people felt that they were advised by angels. In great crisis, they would call the angels to come and help, and they felt they were helped. Delusions and hallucinations were connected with what they thought real. But again, you can see the decline of the idea of the angels that are coming to you and talking to you. You know, in different parts of the world, similar thoughts were there. One major interesting thing, for example, I live in Finland. In Finland, there's a very popular myth, which is known as the Sona ferry. Many people believe that they were believing in earlier literature, you can see that there were small angel-like things, flying little creatures, human-faced and human-bodied. They can be invisible and they can just appear, and they would come and rest in your sauna, in your home. Sauna was the holiest place in every home, because that was the place where they got heat in the cold summer, cold winter. In extreme winter, when people have been very, when you are facing something like minus 25 or minus 40 degrees in the Scandinavian countries, they found their heat in the sauna. That's hot, red hot, stones, and water poured on that. It generates a lot of steam, and you are sitting there with your clothes removed, and you get all the heat on your body. That was supposed to be one of the holiest places in all the Scandinavian homes. They all believed earlier times that there were sauna fairies. They all sit hidden there. They watch you. They watch you, how you behave in your sauna. Because sauna was supposed to be a great place where you have to behave so proper. People are sitting there without dress. But nudity is not a question of any kind of sexuality there. It's a kind of natural behavior. And you don't look at the nudity of others because it's so natural. People sit there and talk great things. Even children and parents and grandparents all sit there, little darkness, and there are little candles or small lights put there, very small lights, so that you can all see each other. And you're just concentrating on the heat that is generated, and that you're sitting, and then you go out and take a cold shower and again come back. That was the way you got heat. And that was one of the cleanest places in homes earlier. Deliveries were done in the saunas. That was the kind of cleanliness there. So it was a kind of a holy place. And the belief was that small angels were protecting the sonas. They're watching you. I don't know what's the source of this story. It's not connected with Christianity, because Christianity came to, at least in Finland 1,000 years back only. Before that also, the Sona fairies were in the imagination of people. Perhaps the idea came from birds, or idea came from big insects. In any case, the imagination was there, and people, of course, in every society, people had their own imagination, their own fantasies, and they put in their mythology. And you can see similar stories in Germany. In Germany, or in many parts of the English gardens, you can see small creatures with the great hats and, very, very humorous faces. Little creatures are standing there. These all are coming from the ancient mythology of the area. There were fairies, and there were very little dwarfs and all these kind of people all around the forest. Little sounds that they heard in the forest, they attributed to some dwarfs making that sound. They would protect you. They will make a lot of jokes. People had their own fantasies in all communities in different forms. They were different, but you can see some kind of string of similarity in all these kind of beliefs. The idea of a personal angel comes from perhaps this pre-Christian mythology in connection with perhaps these kind of inexplicable, movements in the nature around, very fast and swift-moving birds. These all could be the beginning of the thought of, people. But the similar mythologies were existing in all parts of the world, you can see. They couldn't understand many things. Sometimes they found that there are little butterflies coming, and suddenly there are flowers. They could not imagine that it's the flowers that attract the butterflies, not that the flowers are blooming because the butterflies came. These connections and correlations they find, and they attributed a lot of good things to their fairies, or to their dwarfs, or to their flying, little creatures, or to their angels. And these kind of beliefs were certainly the background of the Semitic belief of the angels also. The kind of beliefs that existed in that area where these beliefs came up, that was the, part of the angels coming in the Semitic religions, in the Abrahamic religions. But now, coming to these angels in the personal life of many people, that is attributed to one major thing these days. The traditional religion started facing huge threats from scientific advancement at one side, and critical inquiry, the kind of rationalist movement, the free thought movement, and youngsters coming and asking skeptical questions. All these kind of things started in a very big way from the 18th century. In every single part of the world, you can see the rise of the spirit of reason. You can see that. There's a very famous book that Thomas Paine has written, The Age of Reason. A new age of reason. Reason has dawned. And that new age of reason has provoked the French Revolution. And that has changed the whole face of the whole world. The authority of religion has been, it got a big challenge, and a new world emerged. And out of that, you see a dramatic change where the traditional faith is shrinking and going away. And when the decline of the faith in the traditional belief came, normally, people would, a certain amount of people would want to cling on to certain faiths. The more the aggressive campaign against the traditional faith comes, the more and more people find that their traditional faith has no base of meaning. What will you do when you really are in a mental state that you need something to cling on? Especially in the modern age, when your faith is challenged at every side, your fundamental belief has no way to defend. Only some, very vocal, people who cannot accept the reality that their traditional faith cannot, stand with reason. The test of reason, it would not survive. They would make big sounds. But many people sadly understand that their traditional faith is facing a great challenge and it's not standing to the test of reason or future. They would want to cling on to something. The new spirituality emerges around this time. You see it from the beginning of the 20th century. The new spirituality has several forms. New soothsayers emerge. 19th century in main Europe, you see a lot of people who would claim that they can communicate with the dead people. And I mean, they were called the mediums. There were mediums everywhere having little shops, like there were shops of astrologers in many parts of India or Sri Lanka. And they were advertising and making small shows where you can go and pay a little money and you can sit there and you can have a session to communicate with the dead people. There were famous, two sisters in UK. And, you know, the kind of people who are following this faith, that you can communicate with dead people with the help of medium, was very, very popular. Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, he himself was a believer in these kind of things. He really believed that one could communicate with the dead people with the help of mediums. And the whole structure was very simple. They would sit there, and if you want to talk to your dead grandparent, and you would be asked to sit in a room, and the room is closed, and then after some time there'll be some little sounds, some angels would be coming, the person would announce, then the angels would talk to you, some little sounds are there, it's all manipulated, it's all done professionally. And then you would sometimes feel that there is a little movement in the home, in the dark room, and you would ask a frail question to your grandparent. There can be little sounds with a very, very distant voice coming in from one side of the room with an answer, all mimicked by these people. Pure fraudulent structures, but some people, some 5 to 10% of the population believed in it. And there were people like Joseph Rinn, who has written My 40 Years with the Psychics. He was the president of the British Psychic Society, and later he found that the whole thing was a sham and came out and wrote a great book, his years with the psychics. So that was one time of the new spirituality. That has declined. People understood that this is absolutely baseless. But even now, there are soothsayers, whom you can visit them and you can pay a little money. And like the astrologers in some other country, they would tell you what is the future, what is happening in your life, and they would talk to some spirits and get you answers. According to a belief, the whole idea is that you can communicate with the other world without you can't communicate with the other world without the help of these people. And then they would take money and they would communicate with the other world, and then they would talk to you on behalf of them. That was the whole idea. Now, again, this has declined. Now you see that there are a lot of people. In the last 25 years, the angel phenomenon has become very, very popular. You know, the angel phenomenon became very popular with the Princess Martha Louise of Norway. I hope many of you must be knowing this story. Princess Martha, one of the possible descendants of the Norwegian monarchy, the third person in the hierarchy. When she was born, she was not in the hierarchy, because at that time, when women were not allowed to be in the hierarchy of, to the throne. But later, this was passed by the Norwegian parliament, and she's number 3 or something like that in the whole structure. She is, by profession, she's a soothsayer. She would be speaking to angels on behalf of you. And she has married a person who had an institution, which would promote the new spirituality and angel talking and all these kind of things. She claims that she's a clairvoyant who understands things that is happening in the future in advance. And she can predict things. She comes from the royal family, and I mean, therefore, this got a lot of currency. A lot of people were so embarrassed about this because a person who is in a responsible position as one of the possible heirs of the royalty of Norway, speaking this kind of absurdity and speaking about angels. She didn't speak about gods. She didn't speak about spirits or any other thing. She spoke about angels. The idea of angels got a lot of promotion and currency because of Prince Martha Louise campaign. She has been traveling and speaking about angels. She made special sessions for you to communicate with your angels. It was very, very expensive. Of course, many rich people thought that, I mean, they would want to talk with angels and get advices. Like the only parallel is Indian tantrics, who would control the spirits and, I mean, get you win your, I mean, success in your business or love life or whatever it is. And then the same thing, I mean, Martha and her company would try to sell you, and you would buy it paying a certain price. So this was the major reason for the promotion of the idea of angels. You know, you search internet and you can see a lot of interesting videos. You can see real angels actually flying above your city. I mean, there are many pictures. I mean, like many people produce pictures of UFO. I mean, the people who believe in angels would show you very passionately videos of angels flying. Mainly, I mean, done by small video tricks. And also sometimes some birds, which is not visible properly, is presented as angels. You can see even pictures of an angel with a hurt wing fallen down and people trying to help her. I mean, nowhere you would, I mean, if one is in senses, one would not believe it. But I mean, you believe it or not, there are a lot of people who believe in these kind of things. Seriously, I mean, something like 3 to 5% of the European population believe in angels. And who are these, I mean, 3 to 5% of people who believe in angels and magical things? These were the people who believed in the great powers of God earlier. They found that the traditional faith has collapsed. They're hopeless. But all the same, they don't want to accept reason. They want to cling on to something magical. They want to believe something so real, which is not seriously questioned. Nobody questions, come on, angels is it's a fun story. Nobody takes it very serious. But it gets slowly some currency and some people really believe it, especially people, I mean, who are not very critical in their mindset, I mean, who don't have any critical approach or scientific attitude and who want to believe in all these kind of things. People who believe that a certain ring with a gem would influence your future or luck. Those kind of people would believe in real angels, and they would believe that you can have a personal angel. There are at least a dozen companies on internet who would help you to get advices from angels. You can find your personal angel. They will tell you what's the name of the angel that is protecting you. You can buy the services of an angel. If you really believe in an angel, and I mean, you approach one of these companies online, they would tell you, and they will ask you all the details, I mean, your date of birth and all these fine details, and they will work on it, of course, take a lot of fee, and they will tell you a special name. Oh, that could be any wonderful name of a young, beautiful girl, I mean, somewhere, I mean, but there may not be any person, but that would be your special angel. Then the angel company would tell you that this angel is protecting you all the time. It's flying with you. When you go out, the angel is protecting. You can walk in the street without any danger of any unknown person attacking you, because this angel is always with you. You know, there is why it works. Many people want to believe that they are protected by some unknown forces. That's one of the keys of the belief in God also. You can stand by yourself, but all the same, you would want to believe that you cannot stand by yourself, and you want to hold an imaginary staff and lean on that staff and walk with that walking stick, which is not real. There is no walking stick, but you want to have this walking stick to lean on and walk. That's what God was earlier. And that's what these angels are now. These angels, once you are told that you have a special angel, for example, suppose you are told that you have a special angel, namely Angelina. I mean, just an example I tell you. You believe that angel Angelina is with you all the time. When you sleep, it rests somewhere in the room invisibly. When you wake up, it watches you. After some time, you really believe it, and you would try to look where exactly this little angel. Like any astrologer, when you start talking to these people, you would tell something, and out of what you say, they will understand the mechanism that is working with you, and they will add up stories to that. And they would tell that, I mean, well, one says that I've been very, very tired, and suddenly in the afternoon, I felt so good. The reason is Angel Angelina was there, just there, and blessed you with a magic wand. You really believe it. You start seeing the angel after some day. A little meteor flying in the night, you would see that the angel is coming to you. You would feel the experience of it. So you start living in a world of delusion, and you can start having hallucinations based on your own belief. And these people are not that. I mean, many people say that, come on, those people who believe in all these kind of angels, they pay some money, they can spare it. Let them spare some money and give this, and let them live with their peace if they believe in an angel. Yes, they have their freedom to believe in angel. But at the end of the day, what happens is they feel dependent on this angel. And that would make them helpless without the support of this angel. I mean, this is a kind of a state of mind that they would bring people into. This has been happening for the last 20 years very actively in many parts of the world. Now, I've somebody from India sometime when I've been talking to this person would say that I don't believe in a God, I don't believe in any kind of religion, but I have a personal angel protecting me. I thought he is fallen in love with a girl, and he considers her as an angel protecting him. That's a kind of a beautiful way of saying it. I said, oh, you have fallen in love. He said, no. There is a real angel. It sits on the bookshelf and look at me, and I feel so comfortable. When I sleep, the angel is protecting me. And that he really, really feels that there's an angel protecting. So that's reaching in different places. And this kind of belief is going well and well everywhere. So if you see what percentage of people believe in angels, and if you believe what kind of people believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, if you take the people with the Christian background, there are more people believing in angels protecting you than the people who believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So when a traditional God has gone, a certain percentage of people need something to cling on. And since the critical faculties are not attributed in their mind, they would cling on to a new spirituality, which is connected with these kind of faiths. So now, coming back to the first story that I started telling in the Anglican Church in Britain, in London, there they had these angels because they know what sells, what's the popular faith, what's the folk belief. Earlier, they had Santa Claus during Christmas, but now they try to give you angel. They try to connect it with Christianity so that Christianity's lost terrains are, recovered back with the help of angels. These angels coming from the new spirituality has nothing to do with Christianity. It's a totally different faith that a little angel sits in your room and protecting you. But now Christianity tries to bring and connect it with the traditional belief of an angel in Christianity and try to tell you that that's the same angel that sends my God to protect you. That's one way of trying to get back these people to faith. So this is the phenomenon of faith has several facets, and the keepers of this faith, the custodians of this faith, or the institutions that run the faith empire, they are trying new ways to get those people who have gone away from the faith if they are vulnerable to the spiritual world. The people who left religion because of scientific attitude, because of critical thinking, they know that they won't get them back. But there are a lot of people who left the faith to another faith. For example, the traditional Christianity lost a lot of people to the Pentecostals and other similar movements in different parts of the world. They try to win them back by mimicking what the Pentecostals do, like great faith healing sessions and charismatic sessions. And similarly, when people shift away from Jesus Christ or Jehovah to angels, they would bring back their stories about angels and connect it with their own faith. You know, earlier theologians used to say that, come on, there are no angels or there are no demons or spirits or anything. There is a great creator only. And that creator is the universal creator, and we call it with a name and you call it some other name. I mean, they would try to interpret their faith to a new world's broadened view. Well, that's still available for those people who are out in this space, out of this traditional faith. But for those who are vulnerable, they have another version of faith. This version of faith is connected with bringing down the Jesus story or the biblical story connected with this new spirituality. That's one side of this phenomenon. There is another side. If you are in United States, you know about unidentified flying objects, UFOs, as they are called. There are hundreds of science fiction stories where you see creatures from the other planets or other universe and other territories coming to you and talking to you or abducting people. And I mean, great stories, wonderful stories. Star Wars have been such a great, view catcher. But beyond the idea of thinking ahead in science fiction is so fantastic an area of fiction. For example, the idea of time machine, traveling through time. People have been working on this kind of ideas. Any kind of fantasy, any kind of imagination, any kind of thinking about what people could do at one time or the other time can trigger off inquiries, can trigger off new ways of thinking. You know the story of Icarus in the Greek mythology. Icarus, again, another story of the Greek mythology, was a person who wanted to fly. He hears about gods who fly, and Icarus wants to fly. And Icarus decides to collect a lot of feathers from birds and fix it with the wax on his arms. And he is ready. He understands that one needs a huge, wing with a lot of feathers to fly. This is a very famous story in the Greek mythology. Icarus is ready to fly. He had a huge wing, and he goes at the top of a hill and decides to fly and fly. He could fly. Icarus flies with the real wing that is made of artificial, wing, of course, stretched to his hand, and with the feathers and all fixed with the very strong wax. When he flies, Icarus imagines that he should fly. Now he should reach the sun. The story says that he goes up and up to fly and reach the sun. His dream was to reach the sun by flying. And you know what happens when you try to reach sun? The story goes as follows. He goes up and up. We know that it will be very cold in the first phase of when you go out in the space. But the story, he goes up and it's hot and hot and hot. And closer to the sun, it was very hot, and the wax started melting. And all feathers got scattered and flown away, and Icarus has fallen down and died. That was the man who tried to be an angel with wings and tried to fly. Another story of the mythology. But you can see a lot of, from this story of Icarus, from this fantasy of this person who wanted to fly started the imagination of humans who can fly. The flying machine. Wright brothers, who made the first aeroplane, have been so fascinated with the story of Icarus. A mythology, a fantasy has helped them to think about flying and articulate this idea into reality. That's the role of science fiction. Science fiction is fantasy. Imagination, that what people could do. Based on what we have now, one imagines and fantasizes and imagines and tries to create a new world of illusion that is based on our fantasy. But every time a new science fiction thinks of an idea, you get a clue what are the possibilities of what you know now and how can you further develop it. Every science fiction has a contribution in finding new ways in the advancement of human inquiry and human scientific advancement. But it also has a byproduct. That's science-based superstition. One of the major superstitions that comes with these science fiction stories is connected with the actual extraterrestrials coming and abducting people, as you see in the movies, or actual people, especially youngsters in adolescence, and trying to believe that, extraterrestrials started talking to them like the people who are thinking about angels. They are also trying to see extraterrestrials. There are societies in United States to promote the idea of unidentified flying objects. They call it UFOs. But nobody can, close the idea that there cannot be life elsewhere. There can be life anywhere. But we don't have any evidence for that at this moment. And in what form there could be life elsewhere, we cannot imagine. Can it be in a totally different format? If there could be life on Earth, there could be life elsewhere also. One never can rule out these kind of possibilities. And I would personally be so glad if there are other kind of creatures live in some other far-off planets of some stars. And if finally they could come and we all could communicate and our horizons would expand. But unfortunately, we don't have any evidence so far that we have found anything of that sort. There are several efforts going on. If there is anything anywhere, we are trying to get signals from different sites. And if there is anything not very clearly understood, we try to understand that. But before anything is found, anything is understood, there are people who claim that they have seen something and they are flying objects and they see that something is landing. A lot of fantastic stories are there. Most of these are connected with the kind of science fiction movies that you see around. Now, with this, when people start seeing unidentified flying objects, or the kind of people, the societies in United States trying to speak about aliens and UFOs, most of the time they are not scientific people. They're not even in connection with the scientific attitude, or not even critically seeing things. They are the same people who believe in sometimes flat Earth, and they are the same people who would believe in angels coming. The kind of people who believe in all these kind of things also would believe in UFOs coming, and they would witness something. If there is a little a little parachute sent out from, thrown out from a rocket to study about the weather and atmosphere. If it had a little light, for them, that's a UFO. If there is a meteor in the night, which you see from one side to the sky to the other side going, for them, it's a UFO. And if there is a little shadow in the night when they are going, they would think that it's an alien, standing there. Alien is a person who does not belong to our land. Normally, it's also, the word is used for foreigners coming and staying in our countries are also called aliens. So, but here, aliens are people from the other planets. So there are stories that aliens are already here. And many people whom we see are not real people. They must be aliens. They are pretending to be humans and living along with us to understand and spy us. There's a belief like that. So when you see somebody in the street and say hello to him and all, but some people believe that that could be an alien. They have ways to understand who is an alien. And they believe that maybe 1/3 of the population here are actually not real people, but they are aliens. There are people believing really that aliens are amongst us hiding. They're not real people. But these people, again, are those people who are looking for something new to cling on when their traditional faith has gone. The traditional religion has completely fallen down. It has broken into pieces. Still, some people cling on that who has some benefit out of that, or who cannot live without that. They are connected to the institutions that run the religions. But those people who went out of the faith, but still they're clinging to the mindset of a spiritual person, they would need something else than the kind of belief that they would otherwise have, but they will cling to the new spirituality, which has several forms, starting from, angels or to aliens and UFOs and abducting people. Recently, there are some interesting newspapers. For example, the Mirror, The Mirror has a story some days back, which speaks about a lady who says that she has been, I'll read the heading of the story. You will understand. I have it on my computer here. It's a very interesting story to explain you how it works and how it's capturing on the fantasies of many people. This is Mirror on 20th of November. That was yesterday. Yesterday's report on the Mirror. And you can see, the article is as follows, how they are selling these kind of ideas. There's a lady's picture. They say that woman who claims to have been abducted by aliens say that she can prove it. That's the story. So a woman has gone viral on TikTok after she spoke out about an extraterrestrial experience that she says left her scared. Following the ordeal, she says that she went sober and changed her name. But now, one woman claims to have proof that it's all real. Her name is Shira Lumira Rejoice. And she would say that for 3 years, there is an extraterrestrial in her home. And now what she says is that her ovary, there's a scar on her, on her skin. Such people, people who believe in these kind of things, in a hyper belief, they would make scars and they would make extraordinary claims, which is well known. Now she says that in the viral clip, she claims that she was taken by an extraterrestrial being and has ovarian scarring from eggs removed in the ultrasound to prove it. Which means that she says that from her ovary, 3 eggs were stolen by some extraterrestrial. And how would she prove it? There's a scar on her skin. And some people have visited, and the scar is only on the skin, and it has not even gone to the flesh. Just a scar with a blade. And she shows the scar and claims that extraterrestrials came and had a surgery and taken away 3 eggs from her ovarian system. So this kind of stories, one would say that she has otherwise, some mental problem. She must be seeing, things which are not real. But a paper like Mirror, of course, publishes these kind of stories. It's a tabloid. But the TikTok story also has been seen by 1 million people. That's how these kind of stories get currency. Extraterrestrials are all around. They want human eggs for reproduction, and they have stolen it from her. And now an interesting story, second story comes upon investigation by the skeptics. Very simple. She has an ailment that she cannot move when she's, that's a kind of a deformity of muscles. Some people, when they fall asleep, they cannot move their body. When they wake up also, they would need a lot of time. It's like it's a kind of a partial paralysis. it's a sleep paralysis kind of experience. That's an ailment, and I mean that can be treated. The NHS has defined also. NHS has spoken about it. I mean, explained that this is sleep paralysis exists, and it's a kind of inability to move your muscles as you are falling asleep or waking up. So this is what exactly she's telling. I was freezing and my body couldn't move. I looked over at the door and it opened. There is a figure, and like a holographic look human figure. Like a holographic looking human figure, she claims, came into her room, and from her ovary, it took stolen three eggs and gone. She believes it, and shows it in a TikTok story, and I mean, a lot of people follow it. So these kind of stories add to the idea of aliens coming and talking to people and doing things and all. I would, before concluding, I would bring a small imaginary story that had got a lot of currency in India some years back, which is known as the monkey man. In India, it was called the Kala Bandar, means monkey man. A lot of people started believing that there was a strange creature in the city that's making mischief to everybody. And they would believe that this creature was all around, and it would attack people, and it will make a lot of mischief, and it could disappear, it could fly, and it has, different kinds of lights. And then what it could be, the several pictures were drawn by police, criminal experts, who would try to draw pictures of criminals from visual images that they get from people. And they created a small image, and that was a tiny creature of 1 feet high, and with the kind of a mask which a motorbike rider would be using, and with the special lights in the eyes and all. So once this story came, a lot of people started believing it. If you don't believe it, 3 people died in stampede in connection with this monkey man story. People in the balconies in June, which is very hot in Delhi, when especially in the poor sector of the city, when you are sleeping on the balconies in the open area, there are a lot of mosquitoes. And when you have a mosquito bite and you scratch, and if your skin has a scratch in the morning, for you, it's a monkey man came and scratched you. You tell the story and it gets currency. And it got like a wildfire everywhere. People were afraid to go out in the city, out in the city in the nights. It was there for 3 months for many people to listen, and the newspapers were full of stories. If you remember, I was one person who has been speaking about it and went to a lot of places and interviewed a lot of people. I spoke in televisions and tried to explain the phenomenon. It was an urban legend. I could easily see that there were no consistency in the stories that people were telling. Number 2, nobody has died because of a monkey man attack, but they were all dying. For example, somebody sees a moving shadow somewhere and they would scream about a monkey man, and the entire people on the balcony would be standing up and running, and people fall down and die. And at the end of the day, you would never see a monkey man, but everybody is scared of the monkey man. I remember the maid who came to our home at that time. She said in her colony, there was a monkey man. And I asked her how it is. She said she and her husband were so afraid, and they were in their little room, closed, and then through the wall, something which is transparent, a hand came through the wall and tried to catch them, and they were so afraid they moved to the other side to get out of the visibility of this creature. Those kind of stories were in prevalence at that time. And there were 3,000 policemen in the streets of Delhi. Kiran Bedi was in charge of the police. She was the police commissioner at that time. I remember she was ordering police groups to, of course, they have to take care of the public fear about this. But I was one person who was so articulately telling that there was no monkey man, but it was an urban legend coming from a mass hysteria, and one has to address it that way. You have to take out the fear from the people. I still remember John Fades, the correspondent of Time magazine at that time, wrote an article about this in the Time magazine, a 1-page article only about the strange creature in Delhi streets. It speaks about the 3,000 policemen in search of the monkey man in Delhi streets, like the alien. And what were the stories? These were aliens coming from other planets. They're trying to invade the city of Delhi. Some other people say that these were robots sent by Pakistan. Some other people say that, at that time there was a very popular television series going on about Hanuman. And the Hanuman is a mighty character in the mythology. And I mean, it could shrink and expand big. And all these characters were attributed to this monkey man imagination that was in spread. And John Faday's article ends with a cryptical remark about my position. He says in that article, the entire city of Delhi believes and sees a monkey man. But there is one lone dissenter who says that there is no monkey man, but it's just an urban legend. He seems to be the lone single voice in the city. It was like a sarcastic comment that I was the only person who speaks that it's a lone, I mean, the only lonely person who says that there is no monkey man. But 3 months later, also I remember Indian Express newspaper at that time made a Sunday supplement with what the police commissioners were telling at the time about the monkey man and what measures they have been telling on each point what I would counter. They made a full page, I mean, a demonstrative, illustration at the time they made. But later, 3 months later, there was an inquiry commission which proved exactly that it was an urban legend and there was no monkey man. I mean, this is a classical example of how aliens and angels would work with people. Now, these all are private small beliefs of people, small set of vulnerable people who would give money or, tell fantastic stories. And some other people who would sell these stories and try to get something out of it. But once these kind of things get out of our hands, it can spread like wildfire and create mass hysteria. Therefore, one has to, there's a general tendency to ignore these kind of superstitions as they are not very prominent, as they are not very harmful. But we have to educate people, over and over again, the whole phenomenon and how it works. Because that's important that these kind of superstitions, the new spirituality, go out of the little, box and emerge as a real big superstition that can influence a major part of the society. Thank you very much. Now we are moving to the question session.
Exactly. Thank you. And I think now we can move forward to the question answer round. As usual, click on the hand raise tool icon for asking, and please be as precise as you can with the question. So before I think we start with the Zoom questions, let's move to the Clubhouse questions first and then come back here.
Oh, you want somebody, you want questions from Clubhouse?
Yes. If
Yes, yeah.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Sanal, for an enlightening and entertaining presentation. It's very interesting how you brought up the spirit of reason, which surpassed the concept of angels and spirits. As Sanal said, it is fascinating to note the relevancy of scientific advancement and critical inquiry, free thought moments. Youngsters' critical questions influence the new era of rational thinking. For your attention, participants and Clubhouse members, before we go ahead with the question segment, please join the group. The name is Rationalist. We always update you with more socially relevant topics for discussions. So if you are a member, you will be notified. So we are opening the hand raising options now. Participants can ask questions by raising their hands. Try to avoid too many statements. Be specific on questions. You are allowed to ask one or more follow-up questions or a counter. I just want to open. Can you please, somebody open the hand raising option? Something wrong with my system, it's not.
Okay, I can try it here.
Okay, it is open to everyone. Hey, Namanu, you may ask your question. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Diti. Thank you, Sanal, for the wonderful talk.
Can you be a little more louder, please?
Yeah. Thank you, Sanal, for the wonderful talk. I just had one question. You mentioned about UFOs and the angels. do you think the UFOs and the angels come on the same category? Because there was several files of declassified files recently from US government where they say out of 150 or out of that almost 145, they still mention the unidentified aerial phenomenon. They do not have any explanation for what they are. They don't deny it, they're from etc. But they just say we don't have an explanation for that. So, do you categorize the UFOs on the same page as that of the angels or demons that you mentioned?
Namanu, regarding for example, life outside this earth, that's something we cannot simply rule out. I would say that we cannot rule out such a possibility, or the possibility of, the people or creatures from other parts of the universe coming and visiting our planet. It's a fantastic idea. If it's true, I would be very, very happy. How can we rule out such an idea? Because the universe is so big than our, 20 years back, what we knew and what we know now, for example, keeping on understanding the growth of the size of the universe in our knowledge is keeping on growing. And there is no way that we can simply blindly refute the possibility of any life outside our earth. Also, we cannot refute the idea that any unidentified flying object, that's the correct word. If that could be a flying machine from some kind of creatures or people from the other part of the universe, is something we cannot rule out. But so far, any kind of claim that was made by the UFO groups are proved to be correct. But that doesn't mean that it has to be ruled out totally. That should be dishonest in such a situation to rule out any possibility of life beyond this planet. That's how I would like to see it. Because I personally would be so glad and thrilled if there is life beyond this earth, and if there is life somewhere else and we could communicate with them. That would be something like not trying understanding new territories in our own, geographical discoveries in the 15th and 16th centuries. That would be wonderful and fantastic. And there can be still many inexplicable things that we have seen, but none of them, to my knowledge, is proved to be from visitors from other planets. It has not been, none of these claims have been proved. There are not explanations for many phenomena. And that does not mean that could be extraterrestrials or, UFOs could be actually flying machines coming from other planets. For example, sometimes the US, Air Force has been later explaining many times that what many people found to be an UFO was their own, observing equipments. So similar cases were explained many times also. As you rightly said, I would not rule it out. But those people who claim that they were abducted by ET, and they were out for 4 years and came back, those kind of claims are in the same category, because there are nothing to substantiate their claims, nothing to prove that what they said would stand to the test of reason. Therefore, I would say that this could be easily categorized like with those people who would claim that they have been communicating with an angel or a spirit, or for them it's a reality, but there is nothing that supports or substantiates with that. That doesn't mean that I'm ruling out the possibility, and that if I rule out the possibility of life outside this, the solar system or something like that, that would be absurd to rule out a great possibility. But what we know now about people, who claim that, for example, the mark in the fields, like, for example, the wind marks, or for example, which makes a circular mark as an evidence some people would bring that a UFO has landed there was when things are explained systematically, when we understand the reasons that sometimes people don't otherwise understand, that is understood, and I mean that has to be taken in that way. But of course, we have to keep it open. We have to inquire about it. Any kind of inexplicable thing should be open for further inquiry. So the question is yes and no. I don't deny the possibility. I don't rule out the possibility of any life or any, anything beyond this Earth or any life in the planets of other stars or anything. There is no way that we can rule out that thing. If you rule out bluntly and blindly such things, that's ignorance. I would fully agree that. But so far, what I have studied and what I've seen and what of the official materials and statements that we have, there is nothing that we know for certain that from a certain area or some certain stars, some creature has visited here or visiting here, and there are proven evidences for that. So it's not proved yet, but there's a possibility. We are watching it. There are many things that are inexplicable, but many things that were inexplicable are getting explained when you know about that also. One small example I tell you, the aurora that one sees in the northern pole. I mean, in northern countries, like in Finland or Sweden, or mainly in Finland, in winter, if you go north, you see great, wonderful lights in the sky, with especially green and blue and all these kind of lights moving suddenly with the extraordinary, it's a magnificent, great view. Many people could not understand. It's not actually coming from anything that we know from ours, Earth or its structures. It's actually the presence of, Saturn is releasing certain ions, and that is making this magnificent view. Nobody would understand that. It was believed by many people. I've seen even literature telling that this great lights that move, very strangely, are the presence of extraterrestrials, and that's a sign from the other world where the extraterrestrials are living to communicate the people who are here as aliens. But now we know how it is happening. It's a natural phenomenon only. So similarly, many things inexplicable could be explained by those people who are, you take a position and you want to prove it. There are many people like that. They are ufologists. They want to prove, their life mission is to prove that there are UFOs and aliens, and there are societies for that. So they look for everything and anything possible and bring out anything that is inexplicable, and they say that that's an evidence, and that's to be taken as an evidence for a UFO or extra life outside the universe. So I would keep it open, but so far there is no verifiable evidence that is available, at least to the public. We have to wait and watch. Would that satisfy your query?
Yeah. Thank you. Just an additional question.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned about alien abduction, such kind of hysteria, I would like to know, I've seen several videos and articles about such with some credible people, but they are quoting the post-hypnotic regression treatment for this, for remembering whatever happened during their abduction period. Do you think post-hypnotic regression, this is a pseudoscience, or do you think there is some kind of science behind this, like hypnotic regression or post-hypnotic regression? So this kind of
interesting question. Hypnosis is a phenomenon that's explained scientifically. You could give suggestions to people, and especially if you can decide about the kind of suppression of the other, the five gateways to understand things, your sound and the vision, your eyes, ears, your skin, and all this kind of the basic things, the five, the ways to understand our experiences are connected to that. And if you focus on one of these, and if the focus is too much, and you would be suppressing yourself all other. For example, if you see something so strange and you're concentrating so heavily on that, you would not see, you would not feel if somebody touches you. You would not hear any sounds at that time. You would be totally into it. If you hear a certain sound and you are completely entrapped in that, then your vision will blur and you would hear only that sound. And once you reach that position in a certain time, you would reach a situation, a state, which is somewhere between your sleep and your awakened situation, and where you are very vulnerable to suggestions. You could get suggestions, and these suggestions are not real. That's the major thing. I had an opportunity to very closely associate with Abraham Kovur, who has been explaining the phenomenon of hypnotism, and he has been showing it on stages also. And for many people with hypnosis, you can control people. No, you cannot control anybody. Many people believe that hypnosis can, you can do things, you can get people do things that they don't want. No, you cannot do that. There is nothing of that sort. That's a story, that's an imagination. But hypnosis is possible only when, if you are willing to take a suggestion, you can be told it repeatedly, and I mean, you would start believing it. Sometimes it's good for example, if you're an addict of something, and if you cannot come out normally, a person who has a strong suggestion capacity, and if you're willing to be, I mean, accept this suggestion with repeated suggestion several days, you can help a person to come out from the addiction. You can do it yourself also. That's known as auto-hypnotic suggestions. So you can suggest yourself, and you can force you to follow that suggestion. You're consciously deciding that you want to stop something, or you want to take a new course in your life. I've done that myself. For example, I've been a heavy smoker at one time. And once I decided to stop smoking decades back, it was very difficult. I've been smoking so heavily at that time. I mean, especially when I was a student. I mean, my post-graduation and even during my research in Jawaharlal University, I was smoking profusely at that time. But I could stop it simply because I found that it was a strong decision is required, and that strong decision needs a strong willpower, but that alone is not enough. I've started telling myself that I can do it, I can do it, I can certainly do it, that I can stop it. I repeated this sentence many times every night. Whenever I had a great urge for smoking, I said, no, I don't want even a kind of a anti-tobacco mechanism. I can do it. I have my strength to do it. I told myself. That's one of the ways to handle it. Anybody can do it. It's not my specialty. Anybody can. One needs a little suggestive support only. And if one is willing, one can come out from any kind of deep addiction, for example, unless it's a very harsh addiction which needs medical support. But most of the addiction you can come out, or your interest can be influenced. If you have a fear about something, this phobia can be treated by yourself, by educating yourself repeatedly and making you feel that it's a different thing. You can create your reflexes. I mean, for example, the people who are the Black Cat commandos or something like, or people like that, I mean, who are protecting, I mean, people in power. You have two kinds of reflexes in your body. One is the natural reflex. When you touch fire or closer to heat, you withdraw it. You touch ice, even a child would withdraw it immediately. That's a natural reflex. It doesn't go even to the brain. The command comes from the spine itself. It reacts very fast. But there is another stage which is known as the conditioned reflex. You can condition yourself to have your own reflexes. That's what this, for example, this trained gunmen would do. They don't have any time to assess the situation and get a signal going to your brain and get an answer from that. By repeatedly mimicking a certain situation, you condition yourself, and then a pattern is made, and the brain will not wait till it identifies the thing and get a suggestion, but the pattern is identified and quickly you react. And that's known as the conditioned reflex. And these conditioned reflexes on your behavior pattern can be articulated with hypnosis. But the past life regression or regression by knowing things about past is actually difficult, because what you say in hypnosis can be wrong. It can be simply wrong. This was demonstrated in public stages also. I've also demonstrated it many times. I mean, because I know that it's not a very scientific way to do things, but it can explain a way how our mind is working. For example, if you are asking a person to be in a hypnotic trance by repeatedly telling him a certain thing, and you can tell the person that he is a dog. And one can tell that, he's walking on 4 legs. He would do that. And one can ask him to bark and he may bark. One can make believe a person if he is willing to do it. But it's not reality. So that's why the so-called hypnotic regression is not a reality, because you can give suggestions. You are vulnerable to suggestions. For example, if you say that, for example, if that is also possible, for example, when you use the anti-lie machines, the lie detector machines, you are giving a hypnogenic drug to you. And once you are into that, you are very vulnerable. So the idea is that you cannot think yourself, and when there's a suggestion, you respond to that. Sometimes it can be easily misguided. For example, one small example I can tell you. If you are in a hypnotic trance or in a situation somewhere between your sleep and reality, you can tell a person that he has actually raped somebody, or he has been sleeping with a person. He would say that it's true, I've done it. And can you explain it? He would explain it even. But in reality, nothing of that sort has not ever happened. But he would say it. The reason could be very simple. Sigmund Freud speaks about that, because he believed in the power of hypnosis in the beginning, and later he disowned the idea of hypnosis as a way to understand our mind, because he always said that there can be unknown suggestions in your statement. That's where this method is not possible. One possibility is that you tell that when you have been sleeping with this lady, have you used force without her permission? If a question comes like that, if somebody is accused of a rape. But in fact, there was no rape involved. But he actually had a fantasy somewhere to have a relation with her. And he would like to fulfill it someday. But there is no opportunity, or there is nothing of that sort actually happening. It's a person's private fantasy. But when you are in a hypnotic trance, when you are suggesting, when you have been sleeping with her, that's a suggestion. That moment, somewhere in your mind, you wanted it, and you feel, you start dreaming partially or fantasizing that you have been. And then you are asked to remember it. You remember, in quotation, you remember it, but it is not reality. One can get you speak things which are not real. One can get you speak things which were just in your fantasy, but not even in your fantasy. You can trigger your fantasy by a suggestion, and you would speak which is not real. So therefore, depending on hypnosis to understand anything, or depending on hypnosis to get any information, can be quite misguiding, and it could be wrong. So that cannot be a good way of understanding anything. That's one suggestion these ufologists and all people are telling, that hypnosis would work. So they would demonstrate it because they are giving suggestions without them noticing it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And next question, Neo, you may ask a question.
Hello, Sanal sir. First, I would like to say that I have great respect for you, for your rational thinking, and also your father, who fought for critical thinking a lot. And I would like to point out the fact that a lot of UFO sightings are happening in different parts of the world. So these UFO sightings are now increasing in different parts of the world, and even the military is observing them very closely. So this is now it is like not a secret anymore. And even there are mass sightings, like we know what happened in Phoenix, where the whole city saw the Phoenix lights. And we can say that some of these are man-made UFOs, because the American government by now, they have some of these technologies by which they are able to make very advanced flying objects, which we can call UFOs, and they are secretly using it. But other sightings of the mass scale are happening. And also when the ufologists presented some of their videos recently, the last 2 years, I am sure you are aware of Jeremy Corbell. He presented his 3 videos to the public. And when these videos went viral, the Pentagon in the end had to oblige and reply to that these were real videos. I hope you have seen the videos. And so even the Pentagon has come to his knees. And they have to, this much years they kept the secret. And now they have to agree that such events are really happening. And also the other, you remember before 2 years, the pilots, they followed the craft, and those, I am sure you know, you have seen the interviews on the 60 Minutes and all, in which they detail that these are not of this world and not of the human made. They are not man-made. And they were able to maneuver at very high speeds and angles. And these are highly experienced fighter pilots. And also the team, I hope you are following all this information in detail. So something weird is happening. And also the American government, if you remember the farewell speech of President Eisenhower, he warned that a powerful lobby is working behind keeping this information a secret from the world public. He called it the military industrial complex, and they are fighting from the time of in the 40s. They have decided to keep this a secret, and they are using their lobbying power in the United States and all over the world to keep this information from the public a secret. So what is your opinion about all this?
I mean, the question has several phases. Number one, prominent people, you have been quoting Eisenhower, warning about, based on his belief. A prominent person believing in something cannot give a justification for a scientific information. That's not the way we have to see things, on the basis of fact. For example, Arthur Conan Doyle, a famous writer who why he is important? Because he has been writing Sherlock Holmes, the criminal investigation stories that has caught up the imagination of the whole world, going into the fine details of all crimes and crime investigation. That's the kind of mind that he had. He has been fallen into the idea of spirit communication. And Joseph Rinn, who was the president of the Psychic Society at that time, later says that, they've been actually manipulating what he has been seeing. But he has been believing it. He really believed in it. So that doesn't sanctify anything. But ruling out that. If this idea that in United States, there are a lot of UFO sighting and the US Air Force is deliberately hiding it, or the Pentagon is hiding it, why would they do it? If there is, a regular visit of aliens, and there are UFO is the correct word, unidentified flying object. If they are just whatever we see as, a flying object we see, and if that's unidentified as what it is, we call it a UFO. But they are unidentified flying objects. They are not flying saucers. So many people say anything that is flying and you cannot understand it, you would call it a UFO. That's correct term. I would say a correct term. But UFOs are really communication or people coming from the other world and running around here. If that's so fine. But why, for example, these kind of things are coming only after 1940s? Why before 1940s there were no UFOs? Nobody has seen a UFO. Nobody had an idea about the strangers coming from the other world.
Sir, the atomic explosion, the atomic test, and the later nuclear test, more than thousands of them were conducted, right? So maybe because the man discovered such a dangerous technology, these beings are observing what man is doing. Because
okay,
man has
let me complete this sentence. I mean, I would advise not to interfere while I'm speaking, because then we cannot communicate. While you have been speaking all the time, I've been listening without any interference. And then you have to have the patience to listen what I say. And after that, I mean, if you still have any problem, I mean, anything to be, explained further, we can speak. But at that now, when I'm speaking, please do not interfere in between, because that way you cannot communicate a thing. Okay. Now, secondly, the second question is, there were imaginations about, no, the question is, it's not real. Many people will ask this question. Before 1940s, why people were not seeing? In fact, people have been seeing a lot of things. In Greek mythology, you can see a lot of things. Gods coming and going. I mean, they could fly. In India, we can see a lot of stories like that. And the gods are coming and coming down. And I mean, they were flying equipments. Ravana has been on a flying object, and I mean, people were moving. So all these kind of ideas were there, but in a different pattern based on the thoughts of those times. But why people would see such things? Because people are seeing flying things. And when we have aeroplanes and when you have science fiction coming, and if you look at the kind of patterns that are coming up, that's why I've told the story of the monkey man in Delhi. Patterns are made, the main belief patterns or main what people claim are coming mainly from the basis of science fiction stories. That doesn't mean that it has to be ruled out just because there is a science fiction in the same pattern. But the question is, why there are sightings only in United States? Why, for example, there are no sightings in India? Of course, there are still some people who claim that they have seen something, and that could be explained also by some people. The unidentified flying objects sometimes are identified also. Later, one would get an explanation that we have launched a weather observing small instrument. For many people, that was an unidentified flying object, but it was identified later what it is. So whatever we see as unidentified flying object cannot be taken as an evidence. Only when it is identified as a flying machine coming from another planet somewhere else or from far off star, then only we can take it to the point that it is claimed. So the people who are claiming about the UFOs as aliens coming to this earth, there is a problem with that. Many of them are not, they are not in a position to explain what it is and from where it is coming. And what is the logic behind somebody trying to cover it up? Who gets the benefit of it by covering it up? When somebody covers, for example, if United States of America tries to cover it up, and why should they cover it up? Why other nations are not getting any information? Why, for example, USSR, when they have been, very seriously inquiring about these kind of things, why did they not come out with something? Why China is not coming out with something? There are still inquiries going on. There are still, we are, all around the world, we are open to the idea that there could be life somewhere else. And there could be, people there. There could be different levels of life. There could be, and could not be also. But we have to keep it open. We have to inquire about it. Unless and until we have tangible evidence in front of us, it's an unidentified flying object. It should be when the unidentified flying object become an identifiable flying object, then only it becomes a fact. Till then, there is a section of people very articulately campaigning for the UFO, sighting and all this kind of people. There are societies to promote it. Why should there be a society to promote UFOs and the idea of UFOs? They think that there's a secret behind the whole thing. And there is something is hidden. Somebody is covering this information. Somebody is making a whole, secret world out of it. But what's the explanation for that? Why should at all somebody keep such a big secret to the whole world for decades and decades and decades now? Generations pass over, but still no more information is given. How can one keep such an information secret for a long time? How it is not universally accepted if it's reality? These are the questions. I would not say that, very clearly, I would not say that there are no unidentified flying objects. There are many unidentified flying objects. Many are identified as meteors. Many are identified as spy, satellites. Many are identified as, static aeroplanes. But many are not still identified. But also one has to understand that there are nations competing each other and everybody is trying to spy on the other country. And there could be many information that are connected with national security, especially in connection with spying. So can we mistake many of these as coming from the other world? Or should we, should we simply say that anything that is unidentified is it's a traveling machine of an alien? Or we should say that unidentified is unidentified. We should be honest to say that we do not understand what it is. It could be for a common folk. The state sometimes would not speak about such things because they themselves deploy spying machines. So still, if there is any secret kept so well covered like that, with evidences, somebody will come someday and bring it out to people. But so far, there is no convincing information to the skeptical world that, anything is hidden by any government, out of some special interest, and such a long, secret is kept by some government over decades and generations without bringing it to public attention. And what would be the great interest for that? And if there is an interest by one nation for that, why on the whole world other nations try to get this information and make it for their purpose and speak it out? So these questions are open. I would say that an UFO is clearly unidentified flying object. When it becomes an identifiable flying object, and we know what it is, and we are sure that those were from some planet or some other far-off star, and we could actually see people or creatures coming from outside, we have to keep it open. That's what I feel it. Thank you.
Should we, I do see some hand raised in Zoom and we may take over.
Yes, so I think let's take one of the questions from the Zoom now. We have a Zoom user with us. I'll just unmute her so that she can proceed.
Good evening. Nice talk. Thanks. I live in United States for many years. I think a couple of brothers asked in United States so many unidentified objects had been seen, but it is not proved. They are like moving objects. It could be a shooting star or it could be something else. They are also identified these through space lab. But it is not real, it is reported. I live here many years. Nobody said aliens, they are just saying it's kind of a story. Nothing is proved. And also the hypnotism, they try to use to management of pain management, chronic acute pain for few years. They tried hypnotism, but it don't work. Okay, if somebody say, or even some experienced MDs tell you, I can control your pain with the hypnotism, it don't work. It had to be treated medically and psychologically. And there is sunflares. Sunflare is something colorful sunlight. It's because of the some kind of something is happening with the sun. Then they give colorful lights to Earth. That does not mean they are alien. It can be from very, very, very far away planets also. It's not identified. They are looking for it, but they haven't found anything real so far, as far as I know. This is all I like to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that feedback from United States. But regarding hypnosis also, you're very right. For acute pain, nothing of this sort will work, but minor pain, even when somebody pat you and say that, come on, you would hold it. you feel immediately a kind of relief. And this is an extended form of it. I mean, to an extent, minor pain, trouble, or the stress, etc., you can control by suggestions. It's nothing more than hypersuggestivity if you have, or if you agree to be suggestible, you would react to suggestion and you experience it in a way that would enhance the soothing feeling. But extreme pain has to be handled, chemically, practically, otherwise it would not work. You are very, very right. Thank you very much.
Okay, Deepthi, you have more questions?
No more. Okay, and thank you, Shubhi. Thank you, Sanal. And next question goes to Bharat.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes. I can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Sanal. My question is that when we talk about aliens, we usually think about like animals or humans, right? So the question is, I read somewhere, I could be wrong, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there could be some kind of system which is very intelligent, but we may not see it. Like it could be, for example, if you are transmitting some data through electrically, so it does have some kind of information. So there could be some kind of system which is not animal or which is not like human-like, but which could still come to Earth. I read that. And I heard that Elon Musk also believed that it is true. So I would like to know your opinion on that. Like, if there is such thing, we may not be we may not be try to like crack it now, but we may or may not. I don't know. There may not be some techniques or instrument to prove that. So it is possible, right? Can we disregard that idea? And second question is, let's say right now there is a statement. I cannot prove that statement, and I am in power and in position where my decisions matter. So I say that this statement is I'm saying that this statement I cannot accept right now because I cannot prove it. Maybe after 50 years, somebody will come and devise the technique or instrument to prove that statement, and they will prove it that is true. So that will as a rationalist right now, I'm saying that it is not provable. So what is your thoughts on that?
I would share fully with what you said, because the primary position that a rationalist has is don't accept or anything a priori. That's a classical Greek way of understanding what is critical inquiry. You don't accept anything on the face of it, and you don't reject anything on the face of it. If you have something in front of you, you would critically evaluate it, and you try to understand it. You try to find evidences for that. You try to falsify it, and now also you would try to see if you can find any fraud behind it. If it does not, it could not be proved. But if you can falsify the claim, if the claims are false, and if you can replicate it with some other thing, that could be one way to rule out it. And if you can find a fraud behind the claim, you can rule it out. Sometimes you cannot still find evidences, but then we keep it open, and that's why you cannot accept or reject anything a priori. You will keep it open. As you rightly said, I think the microphone, if you can off, Bharat, you are
okay. One second.
Yeah. So if there are other methods, other ways, if there are ways of understanding different than us, for some other planets or some other world, well, we may not understand it. But when you say that there is a possibility, there are other ways of understanding things, then the way we understand things, if there is another method for it, then it comes that we do not understand it because there is a possibility that there could be another way of understanding it. But that also says that we did not understand it anymore. At this moment, we don't have an answer at this moment for anything. There could be something, but when you have a new system of understanding, you may understand it. But at this moment, you cannot go ahead with the presumption that what you did not understand is a certain thing. So you say you are open. You say that, I don't understand it. There can be other ways of understanding it. You would study it. You keep it open. That's how it's to be seen. And I fully agree that the spirit of openness is very, very important in scientific inquiry. And also, I've heard, very famous, space scientists like Kyrie Enquist, whom I have a very close communication, and he has been speaking in one of our meetings of Rationalist International in Helsinki. And, one of the ideas that he has been developing, he's one of the topmost space scientists in the world, Kyrie Enquist. And he says that the present universe that we know is several billion light years size. And do we know that there can be other universes with other set of rules? We have around 90 set of physical laws, and on that basis, we try to understand things. And these fundamental laws of physics that we know is what we are trying to apply to understand this universe. But can there be other set of rules of understanding things, or other ways of understanding the physical world in another universe? It's not what we are not sure about. We have to be even open for that. So it's a huge universe. There can be different set of laws, different set of natural principles, and we cannot end up with small ideas that is given by mythologies. We have to be so open, so widely opening our eyes and arms to look at this universe. And therefore, yes, as you rightly said, you cannot reject anything a priori. You cannot accept anything a priori. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bharat, and thank you, Sanal. The next question goes to Thambi. Thambi, you may ask your question.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Sanal, for this interesting subject. So, I'm in USA. My name is Thambi Anthony. In my knowledge, all these UFOs are fake. The reason I'm saying is what Sanal said, why it happening only in USA. It's just a marketing thing, people to get people's attraction or whatever, And the reason I'm saying is it is almost impossible to go another planet like Earth from not in the near future, in my opinion. The reason is, like Sanal said, the universe is billions of light years. I'm sure there is Earth-like structure in other Milky Ways. Milky Ways, billions of Milky Ways are there. Because in mathematics, there's an equation, infinite. This is infinite, plus and minus infinity, like our life. So, according to, the nearest star is only 4 light years. The nearest star, okay? So that means light has to travel 3 lakh per second for 4 years. So that's the closest one. So that means, I'm sure Earth is an accident, this explosion or whatever. So I'm sure there is a lot of accidents in the universe. But according to Einstein, traveling in light years, the mass has to be 0. That's what I'm saying, nearly impossible. A mass can travel in light years. Even though we travel in light years, it takes years, billions of years to reach another, maybe millions or thousands of years to reach another planet. Even the light. So only its possibility is radio waves. That's what we're expecting. All this NASA crap, all this just publicity. So nothing is going to happen. And we're never going to meet any aliens in the near future. I don't know the future. That's a science says. It's kind of impossible. How can we travel with the mass? Any object travel, it takes billions of years. So object cannot be traveled unless the mass is going to 0. That's what I'm saying. This whole, you see what we seeing in United States, lights, this and stuff, stories, they make documentaries, to get people's attraction. That's what I think. So that's my question to Sanal. Is it possible in the near future science can? We are nothing in the universe. That's what, even Milky Way is nothing. We are like, so it's beyond our imagination, in my opinion. Beyond imagination. People say there's a time. Time is only in the earth. We have time. we found out the time to measure our life. In space, there's no time, only space. It's very vast. So how can you even imagine we are going to communicate with an aliens? It's impossible. It's my opinion. What do you think about? What do you think? Anybody can answer. Thank you very much. I have other meetings soon.
Yeah.
Because of the interesting subject I get.
Thampi Anthony, by the way, for others who do not know him, is one of the famous cinema artists in Malayalam language and a very, very famous producer as well. I mean, thank you that you are here. And the question, now coming to the question, the size of the universe is, as you rightly said, is so big that our life is not enough. The whole life of the human race, if you take the time from the beginning of Homo sapiens sapien, from there, if you calculate the whole time that the human race has lived, that's not enough to reach the first nearest star, Alpha Centauri, with our methods to reach there, not even to see that. So this universe is so big. That's the nearest star after the sun in this Milky Way. And you have billions of similar stars in this Milky Way. And there are so many Milky Ways, and there are so many set of universes in the whole area. And the size of the universe is something like 3,800 billion light years, as we know now. And that would mean that it's not only that, we cannot travel in the speed of light. If we can travel in the speed of light, it would need several thousand billions of light years to understand what's happening the other side of the universe that we know now. And we are humans who have a limited life. And the whole human race that we know also is a very small phenomenon. And our methods, unless and until we develop something so dynamic to understand still a more vaster area, we cannot even understand what's happening in the nearest part of the world. We understand by, the methods that we develop the present size of the universe. But the process, what Thampi Anthony is telling is a very, very, clear position, which I would share also, that the size of the universe is so big for us to know at this moment, at least, anyway. For the whole human race, the whole life that we have lived is not enough to reach anywhere in this universe now. It's so big, so huge. We cannot limit our fantasies and imaginations to, include the whole size of the universe at this moment. So even otherwise, if there is anybody visiting here on this earth, why on earth somebody should hide it? That's something it's so simple question which is yet to be, answered. In any case, the whatever claims that we see, many of them are getting explained very simply, and many of these things, some people claim, are not verifiable. Therefore, they remain as unidentified flying object. Sometimes there are a lot of claims, those are fakes also. And how can you fake images? There are, if you see the skeptic sites all around the world, you can see, you can replicate all these kind of images and videos. So because there is an active society who are determined to prove that there is, a secret, plan of the US government to control all this information. They are keeping and fighting on this point instead of keeping the mind open and trying to understand and helping others to understand also. So I would say that, well, the inability to understand the universe at this moment has to be given a very important, position when we want to make final judgments about everything. So a priori, don't accept anything. A priori, don't reject anything. Keep it open. That's the best way. Thank you, Thampi Anthony.
Thank you, Thampi. Thank you, Sanal. And we are over with questions, so no more questions. Also, this time very much people are satisfied with the presentation, Sanal. So
there is a question I see in Zoom today. We could decide the topic today by some hours beforehand only, and we could not inform everybody as we could inform. I mean, that was one of the reasons that normally we are informing in so many WhatsApp groups and also that people are interested in, but a limited number of people which we are directly in contact only, we are informed. We are not informed in any Facebook groups or anything. That's why, I mean, many people could not attend it, but since this is on YouTube, and this is already streaming, and I mean, those people who cannot see can see for one more day with the streaming, but this will be later uploaded on the YouTube and more people will be able to see that. So one more question I see on.
Yes, by Rasi. I just unmute and then she can.
Hi, Sanal sir.
Yes, Rasi.
Sir, actually, I was not here from the beginning, but as far as I listen, it's very interesting topic, aliens and angels. Actually, I was thinking about the romantic fantasy film by the legend Padmarajan sir, Nyan Gandhavan. And Gandhavans, according to Hindu mythology, are celestial musicians in Devaloka. Everyone knows. And the film is based on the fantasy of a girl's passion for a celestial lover, who is invisible to all others. Only she can see the Gandhavan, right? Scientifically, it's a form of hallucination or it's a medical problem or something. But if I say that hallucination has sufficient reasons, or it's a form of struggle for existence, or it's a kind of fulfillment of one's distressed desires, how do you respond to this? I'm not. I don't think that I'm a schizophrenic or something. Just asking you, how do you respond? Thank you.
Yeah, I understand the question. I mean, for those people who do not understand what is the story about, I mean, that's about a famous movie based on the fantasy in India, or about a mythological character named Gandharva. Gandharva is an imagination in mythology. There are people who are living in a different world and who could come here. They have one problem. They cannot touch their feet on the earth. And they have to disappear during the day. And this is a story, a very famous novel, and based on that, there is a movie about a girl fallen in love with this fantastic, invisible person. For her, he is real, and for others, he is not real. And she sees him, and she has a loving experience, and they are together in the nights, and then for others, it's not a reality. And for her, she is actually with the Gandharva. That's a beautiful story. And, I've heard interpretations of people about these kind of stories. Who are these Gandharva? They are aliens. I've heard such stories also. I mean, but in this novel, I've read this novel as well. I've seen this movie. Therefore, I can say that that's based on the fantasy of a person. I don't know whether the novelist has actually thought of bringing the real mythology into a reality in the story, or if it's kept open on both sides. I mean, that's a beautiful way of presenting it. But one can have fantasies, one can have imaginations, one can even fall with imaginary aliens. I mean, there is nothing wrong in that, because fantasies are unending, and fantasies should be there. I mean, the higher the fantasies that you have, you can reach the greater experience of your imagination. People have been fantasizing of flying, people have been fantasizing of the other world, and people have been fantasizing about very unusual things. In the Greek mythology, in the Indian mythology or Egyptian mythology, you can see fantastic fantasies. And I am in support of human imagination and fantasy, and fantasies can take you anywhere. But you have to also come to the ground realities. So when you come to the ground realities, you have to base it on factual situation and actual situation in front of you, the ground reality. These are two different worlds. Fantasies are for fantasies. That's the beauty of art, literature, imagination, fiction. That's their fantasy working. And for example, your own, the expanding the horizons of your own thought, you can have fantasies. You can have great imaginations. The whole science fiction is full of fantastic imaginations. So nothing against fantasies. It's not schizophrenic to have fantasies. Enjoy your fantasies, celebrate your fantasies. But try to write about it also. It can create sometimes great literature, great novels, probably. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I think we're done with all the questions now. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. And thank you, sir, for answering all these questions and enlightening us with this topic. And see you all next week.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And see you again.